Arpana Jinaga was an amazing young woman. The 24-year-old software engineer had graduated from Rutgers and worked for a company in Bellevue, Washington. Her interests outside of work included motorcycles and Tae Kwon Do, and she also volunteered at both a fire department and an animal shelter. By all accounts, Arpana greatly enjoyed her life and was well liked. During the first weekend of November 2008, however, Arpana's father became worried. She hadn't answered several phone calls. On Monday, a friend of his went to her apartment in Redmond to check on her, accompanied by Arpana's next-door neighbor. They discovered that the door to her apartment had been forced open. Arpana's nude body was found on the floor of her bedroom. She had been beaten severely, gagged with duct tape, and, in all likelihood, raped. The apparent murder weapon was a nearby bootlace, which had been used to strangle her. Arpana's killer had taken steps to destroy evidence. Motor oil had been poured over her body and other items, and her hands were slathered with toilet bowl cleaner. The linens had been removed from her bed, the comforter was found soaking in the bathtub, and another blanket had been partially burned. How had this happened? On Halloween, Arpana and others in her apartment building had thrown a combined Halloween party, spread across several units. She was last seen alive at around 3 a.m. the next morning, when she left an apartment on the ground floor and went to her own, on the third floor. Afterward, her neighbors heard muffled moaning sounds, but they took the noise to be indicative of consensual sex. It wasn't. It is believed that Arpana was murdered at around 8 a.m. She wasn't found until November 3rd. Despite the killer's attempts to destroy evidence, DNA was recovered from the crime scene. The problem was that it belonged to 3 different people. The bootlace had DNA from a man who had an alibi. DNA belonging to a man named Emmanuel Fair, a convicted sex offender who raped a 14-year-old girl in 2004, was on Arpana's neck as well as the duct tape. A robe stained with the victim's blood, found in a trash bin nearby, also had his DNA. The third man was Arpana's own next-door neighbor, who had been present when her father's friend discovered her body. His DNA was found on a bottle of motor oil which was in the trash with the robe. The neighbor further aroused suspicion when he tried to destroy evidence that he'd called Arpana on the night she was killed. In fact, he was the last person to call her before she was murdered. He also attempted to flee to Canada. Despite this, he was never charged with her murder, due to a lack of evidence. Emmanuel Fair was charged in 2010. His first trial ended with a hung jury in 2017, and he was acquitted in June 2019. During the second trial, the neighbor testified but asserted his Fifth Amendment right against saying anything which could incriminate him, so he could only be asked so much. Additionally, it had been previously ruled that prosecutors couldn't argue that Fair and the neighbor killed Arpana together, as the evidence for this theory was deemed insufficient. A juror later told the press that the main reason Fair was acquitted was that the jury couldn't be sure that the neighbor wasn't the sole murderer. A definitive answer to the case of Arpana Jinaga remains elusive. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.